Hey guys, welcome to my podcast. I'm Vanessa. This is wholeheartedness. That is after Deuteronomy 4:29 and Jeremiah 29:13. Didn't know there were two of those. Deuteronomy 4:29 says, but if from you, okay, I can't read. But if from there you seek the Lord your God, you will find him if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. And Jeremiah 29:13 says, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. So that is essentially the idea behind this podcast, to have wholehearted, honest conversations that are hopefully going to honor and glorify the Lord, and us just getting real. So I thought we would pop off the podcast with my testimony, because why not? It's always good to start there, right? Why would you want to listen to me if you don't know who I am and how I came to know the Lord and why I have anything worth saying? So I am a Christian going on 14 years, and back in the day, when I started dating a guy who I knew in high school. He was in the military. He was shipped off somewhere. So I didn't really get to spend time with him, but his family lived in the same town as me. They were really hospitable people. I wasn't a Christian at the time. And so when I started dating him, I met his family for the first time at church. Wasn't a Christian. Probably went to church in a dress that wasn't really, looking back, probably wasn't the wisest thing to wear, but I wore it. And they greeted me with such grace and kindness, and it was just a warmth that I personally had never experienced before. Over time, they, kept inviting me to church. They were Brazilian, so it was a Portuguese speaking church. I didn't speak Portuguese, but I learned how to speak quite a bit. By no means close to fluent, but I learned quite a bit at the time. But they invited me over. They lived a couple blocks away from where my parents and I lived. And so they were just so kind in always having me over literally every single night for dinner, because we didn't do that at my house. And their food was delicious. So you bet I did not turn down a single invitation. And so I would go over almost every single day for dinner and just really got to know them. I would say, I dated him for 3 years, but I felt like I was really dating his family because, like I said, he was on the other side of the country. And so most of my time was spent with his family. In my getting to know them and kind of coming over and binging on their nightly meals, I got to know them and see how they operate and work under various circumstances. And they had hit a lot of financially hard times, and just seeing their faith through a lot of the trials that they came upon, that there was just this certainty in Jesus, this unwavering confidence that God was with them, and that God saw their circumstance and cared, and that God would meet their need. And seeing him do that in some of the most unexplainable and miraculous ways at times, and how he would really show up for them. And again, I just saw this peace in them, even during such turbulent times, and that didn't make sense to me. Not fast forward, but fast backwards. A couple years, I was dating people. I wasn't pure in my relationships. I was a weed head, so I literally smoked every single day for a couple years in my life. And I would get drunk on the weekends, just unhappy, quite miserable. The boyfriend I had before that one, the Brazilian one, he just really broke my heart. I would say that was probably one of the lowest times of my life, was coming out of that relationship. I think I had just poured so much of who I was into him, and I had so much expectation. I created all these realities of what the future would look like with this person who didn't even really take the time to show me that he cared about me in that way. But yet here I was creating all of these potential future realities with this guy. And so when he left, I felt like so did I. I lost a lot of my sense of direction and self. And it took me a good 6 months to a year to really recuperate from that. And I dove headfirst into drinking and smoking and just kind of trying to numb myself from that relationship. And that's when I re-met this old friend from high school who became my Brazilian boyfriend. And so fast forward back to this family, like every time, especially the mother, she really made an impression on my life because of her just exuberance for Christ, even as everything around them was just crashing. I won't go into the details of their life just in case anybody knows them somehow. If I describe them too well, they might be like, I know who you're talking about. And I don't, it's their personal information, but a lot was going on. They were pretty much going to lose everything. And even in the midst of it, there was a sense of peace and hope in Jesus. And, so coming from my history and my background and seeing that kind of immovability, it's like you say God loves you and God cares for you, but look at your life. Look at everything falling apart. How are you so happy and hopeful in this God who is supposedly allowing this to happen to you? And that didn't make sense to me. Over time, I don't really know at what point, but I finally said to myself, I want that. I want that. I want what she has. I want that certainty, that immovability. And so I just remember one night I was with my friends and we were drinking and smoking, and I remember being high on weed and just feeling like I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this. I don't think this is me. I don't think this is who I'm supposed to be. I think I'm supposed to follow Jesus. And I just remember being high and being like, oh my gosh, I just have to get through this, because there's no undoing it. Once you're there, you just kind of got to endure it. And so I did. I think, I came to Christ in a moment of highness. And from that moment forward, I wish I could say it was perfect. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. It was a long road, but God has been so faithful to me through all of it. And when I first became a Christian, I was just so exuberant, like she was. And I was just so on fire for him. And I slowly, he slowly started to bring people into my life who loved the Lord, who were my age, who I could have community with. But after, several years of walking with Christ, things just started to get rough again. And I feel like I've just been on this rough road with the Lord ever since. What really caused it to be hard for me was like that zealousness for the Lord and for the truth really permeated my heart and took over the way I lived my life. And I had this group of girlfriends that I made at church, and one of them was, being promiscuous, and I had an honest conversation with her, that the Lord loves you and you love the Lord and you deserve to have a man who's willing to wait for you. And she cut me off. And then I had another friend who was getting into some different kind of sin, and I was just honest with her again. And I just said, the Lord loves you. And I know you love the Lord, but this isn't the way God intended for us to be. And she cut me off. And another friend, God, for some reason, decided that I and my husband, I was, fast forward a lot, I got married, but that I and my husband would be made privy to some very sensitive information. And so out of love for my friend, I let her know, and she cut me off. And I think all of those, natural consequences that came with living faithful to God and doing what I felt he was calling me to do, which was to speak the truth in love to my friends, that really hurt me. And I think it just was like one after another. And I found myself just so jaded and just so, I struggled a lot with apathy before I became a Christian. And I just felt that apathy creeping back in. And it's just been this battle ever since. And I've somewhat been friendless since then. But I recognize that for the last probably 5 years, out of those 14 years, I've been walking in apathy and fear. Fear of relationships, fear of living, just sold out for Christ again. He's been patient and he's been gentle, and he's been showing me that I can't live that way. No, I can't live my life with one foot out the door and one foot in the door. I have to be all in for Jesus. And if I'm honest, that really scares me. But yeah, that's kind of like really quick in a nutshell, a little tiny glimmer into my testimony without going into too many details. God saved me through the example of people who were suffering and people who were immovable in their faith in Christ in such a hard time of their life. And it was that assurance and peace they had that gave me hope and gave me a desire. I wanted what they had, and God gave it to me. And I'm just moving ahead with faith and trust, knowing that God can use anything, even someone like me. I hope you join me for this unknown journey, and so you can figure out the mystery with me as to why God is having me do this and what in the world I'm going to talk about. Again, I said I'm a keyboard warrior on some things, and so I have a feeling that I'll be talking about some of those things. They're controversial. They're topics that might ruffle some feathers, but I think they're conversations we need to have as Christians. We need to be zealous for the truth and the facts. And the truth isn't always easy to hear, but God is the God of all truth, and I pray that we can be people of it, willing to have those hard conversations with each other and ourselves so that God can be glorified in us. Anyways, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you. My computer almost turned off and my mic would have stopped recording. But anyways, I really appreciate you being here. I look forward to getting to know you. Comment below and let me know how long you've been a Christian, where you're located, and what you thought about this video. Thanks so much, and see you later.